Let's dive into the most common reasons why golfers struggle to get that compression with the irons. We're going to be taking a look at some of my students in particular that suffer with this issue. Number one, a student came to see me a couple of weeks ago suffering with this issue just because of the way they were transitioning in the golf swing, and this is the first reason. So what they were doing was they were getting to the very top of their swing and then they were forwarding this hip towards the target almost, but mainly tilting their spine angle back, and their thought for the downswing was to get this lead shoulder working upwards to start the downswing, and this was allowing him to get more of a shallower angle of approach into the golf ball. But you can see from this camera angle here, this face-on view now, that if we do this and I was just to place the ball in the middle of the stance, this would encourage this lead hip to move forward as my sternum, my swing center here, actually moves behind the golf ball. So we're moving this swing circle behind the golf ball, and this can encourage us to hit the ground first or bring our arms a little bit close, try and get that early release and accidentally hit up on the golf ball. But that's all we can do from that position to square up that club face. So we're increasing the loft, probably hitting those thin golf shots as opposed to getting that nice compression. So what can we do instead to help us get this compression if you're someone out there that's suffering with this movement here, getting this lead shoulder to upwards, almost like a driver swing, trying to get underneath the golf ball? Well, what we want to be doing instead is ensuring that this lead hip doesn't fire to the target and this sternum moves away from the golf ball. So how we're going to do this is we're going to take a golf club and just place it across the shoulders with the majority of it with the butt end of the club on the lead side, just like this here. So I've just got my golf club touching my trail arm here. And as soon as I get to the very top of my swing, I want this butt end of the club to face towards the golf ball, to point towards the golf ball. And rather than tilting upwards this way and getting the lead shoulder moving upwards, because that sets us into this position here, very much so tilted back, we want to get to the top of our swing and just encourage us to hold this position here and just add a little bit more pressure into the ground. And when we add a little bit more pressure into the ground, you can see this actual club itself is moving ahead of where the golf ball is. It's pointing ahead of the golf ball as opposed to pointing directly at it, simply just because I'm pressing into the ground a little bit. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to get this sternum ahead of the golf ball. So when we actually come into this first initial move, pressing into the ground and rotating, that's going to help us square up the face and obviously get more forward shaft lean, better compression. But just a bonus tip for this, when you're rehearsing this drill, I want you to go up to the top, press down, just so you can see that butt end of the club pointing ahead of the golf ball, and then we're going to get this lead hip of ours rotating away from the golf ball. Now you can see when I get my lead hip rotating away from the golf ball, my shoulder, as opposed to tilting upwards, actually begins to rotate round and follows the hip eventually. And just look at this position here for impact. My sternum now is ahead of the golf ball, so it's going to be so much easier to get that compression. So that's number one. Before we take a look at number two, for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. My name is Harry, PJ Professional, helping you transform your golf game. So make sure you hit the subscribe button if you do enjoy watching this video. In fact, before we actually move into number two, let's see if we can actually hit that shot right now then. So, it's actually thought I hit one just then. So, up to the top of the swing, get in this position here, pressing into the ground, rotating that lead hip round, getting that sternum ahead of the golf ball. Let's see what we think. That was definitely a nice strike. I've just hit 7-iron there, aiming for the 190 flag on the Trackman driver range, and pretty much pin high carried 187, so pretty good indeed. First shot of the day, we'll definitely take that. So number two, what is the second reason that I notice so many golfers do? Well, this is a student that actually came to see me yesterday, obviously from when you're watching this a couple of weeks down the line, but yesterday a student of mine came to see me, and what he was doing in his downswing was trying to create a lot of lag. Now, when we create a lot of lag in this position here, you can see obviously we've got to set the wrist in such a way that actually encourages that club face to be well open. If we were to rotate now towards the golf ball and I just place it back on this face-on view, we rotate into that downswing, leaving that club face in this position here, holding off the wrist, and we keep turning. I see this all the time at the driving range as well. We'll notice this hosel end win the race to the golf ball. That's just going to leave the club face open. So what we do in reaction to this is that when we come into the downswing, almost to about this point here, we'll almost feel ourselves jump out of our posture, get this early release to try and square up the face in time before making contact. Simply because this action here is better off making contact with the golf ball as opposed to holding this angle and possibly shanking the golf ball because of this hosel winning the race to the golf ball. So in reaction, we go this way when we just want to see more of this bowed action here. We want to actually encourage the club face in the downswing to be more closed in transition, stronger position here, as opposed to opening up, because shaft lean, if we forward the shaft at impact, it's going to open the club face anyway. So we've got to create more of a closed angle on the way down, stronger position to help us continue to rotate and compress those irons and keep the club face nice and square whilst doing so. So to do this, you can do a couple of different methods, but the easiest and simple one I like to teach my students, and my student in particular yesterday, was that we want to take our right hand out and we just want to imagine that our right hand, our palm, is going to face towards the sky. You can see here facing towards the sky, holding on to a set of plates, just like a waiter at a restaurant, holding on to a set of plates. Then we're going to throw the plates down towards the ground once this right palm of ours reaches parallel to the ground. So if I just take a club and do that now, up to the top, set of plates, just to help us set the wrist in an ideal position. And then from there, we're pushing the club down just like this here, throwing the club, throwing the plates down, with our right palm now facing towards the ground. And you can see just from me doing this with my trail arm only, how much that sets the club now in a much stronger position. Although it's quite short, we can actually rotate now and encourage more shaft lean to take place at impact. Therefore, more compression, better ball striking. So 2 hands on the club, just rehearsing this, left hand on my lead arm, just there, just to guide things up to the top of the swing. Palm to sky with the right hand for me, so trail palm to sky, or holding a set of plates. Then I'm throwing those plates down, getting that right palm to point towards the ground, and then from there we can rotate round the body. Too many golfers I notice when they try this here, they try and push the hands out towards the target. Well, that's effectively pushing the club away from the golf ball, and then we're going to end up hitting those shanks again. So once we get to the top of our swing, palm to sky, palm to ground, or holding the plates, throwing the plates, and then from here we're holding this angle and rotating around. Look at that, it's helping me square up that club face beautifully and rotating through to finish. So let's give this one a try. I'm going to swing to the top, feel the palm to ground. For me, I prefer that initial thought in my head as opposed to the plates, but you can give the plates one a try. Whichever one suits you, stick with. Let's see what we can do for this second reason. Again, nice strike. Definitely felt a little bit more bowed at the top, which is why it drew a little bit more. So just need to make sure I really hold those hands ahead to keep the club face nice and square next time, but that was a carry of 195, so much better in terms of distance. Just before we move into the final reason, just wanted to give a quick shout out to the sponsors to the channel, GX Golf. GX Golf provide high quality golf clubs for a fraction of the price in comparison to the rest that you see on the market. I've been using these golf gloves for the last couple of months. I've been really impressed with the quality, the durability, and the feel of these golf gloves. You can use this discount code below as well, Harry10, to get yourself a great 10% off these bundled packages of 3, 6, and 9. I'll leave the link in the description below. So number 3, the final reason, and it is all to do with the way we transfer the weight in the downswing. A student came to see me a couple of weeks ago with this issue where they were finding that no matter how hard they were trying to get this weight transferring onto this lead side, they were getting themselves early extending, moving upwards just before we make contact with the golf ball and leaning and tilting backwards onto the trail side. Very similar action to reason number 1, where the hips start firing ahead as this upper body begins to tilt away from the golf ball. And we notice this all the time with golfers. They're always told to try and transfer their weight onto the lead side, and they are correct. But the question is how to actually do this, because Due to something called ground reaction force, is Isaac's third law of motion. For every force acting on a stationary object, there's always an equal and opposite force acting upon it. So if we're trying to apply this force, just using that drill from number 1, if we're applying this force as opposed to pressing into the ground, if we're applying this force first into this lead foot here, now the problem is, what we tend to see a lot of golfers do that have come down here at this facility, they'll push back up and react from this ground reaction force going in this direction, and that pushes them back away from the golf ball. So as opposed to trying to get this weight forward, well, they do this, but then all of a sudden, as soon as they get that reaction back up, it pushes them back away from the golf ball. So as opposed to beginning that downswing, trying to get that weight shift going immediately forward, I'd highly recommend taking a little bit more time with this and encouraging actually a little bit more pressure to go into this trail side. This is only if you're suffering or struggling to get that weight shifting forward. If you can do this, then fine. Try number 1 or drill number 2 instead. But this drill here is to really help those players out there that struggle with this, what we call reverse pivot, where we'll get onto this lead side to begin with and then push back up away back onto the trail side. So up to the top of the swing, we've got our club across the shoulders again, and what you want to allow is the pressure in your feet to go down. So we're pressing down into the ground just like this here. And we press straight into the ground here, you'll feel a little bit more pressure in the trail foot. Now, what do you think is going to happen when we do this? If we're going to apply the pressure more so in the trail foot, not by actually moving in this direction here, just by simply squatting down, as long as we've rotated enough, getting this back of ours to face towards the target, buttoning the club to point at the golf ball, what do you think is going to happen here? Well, just from me doing this here, I can feel a lot more pressure in both of my knees, my feet in particular, my right foot, being a right-handed golfer, the trail foot. Well, if all the pressure's going into this side, there's only one way that we can react, and that is pushing back up and through. When we push back up and through, look what happens. My sternum moves ahead of the golf ball. I get this weight transferring from trail side to lead side straight away, and that really helps me get this movement to allow the weight to then begin shifting forward and ahead of the golf ball. The majority of the weight is on the lead side at impact, and that helps us get this forward shaft lean and better compression with your irons. So just to rehearse this all in one motion, we're taking the club and we're just swinging to the very top, and we're holding this position, squatting into the ground, feeling like we're dipping a good grip length down, just to really exaggerate this feeling, because what's going to happen, due to the feel versus real concept, will only drop a couple of inches in height, and you'll see that's what some of the best players do on tour. They'll get to the very top of the swing, they'll squat a little bit in height to get this pressure, this reaction force to take place as they push back up through onto this lead side of the body. So all I'm doing here is getting up to the top, holding the position, squatting down for 2, and then pushing back up from this trail side to transfer that weight onto the lead side of the body. And just as a little bonus tip for this, a lot of golfers, what will happen is when they try this, they'll struggle with these 2 things. Number 1 is when they get to the very top, they struggle to squat enough because they're too afraid of hitting the ground. So if you're too afraid of hitting the ground, encourage that second drill to take place where we're trying to hold that angle on the way down, swinging round the body, as opposed to letting this angle come away like so. Number 2, we'll notice that when we get this squat enough, we'll push back up quickly, but then struggle with bringing the hands too close to the body. So what we've got to allow is, as we're pushing back upwards from the ground, we've got to imagine we're throwing the club to the ball, just like in that second drill where I encouraged you to get to the top of your swing and throw the club down, throw the plates down towards the floor. Well, in this case, we're going to be throwing the club to the ball without letting go, of course. The feeling of throwing the club to the ball. So really getting my arms to extend as my body's pushing back upwards, my club to push downwards as the golf swing works in those opposite reactions. And that's really going to help you generate more speed and even better compression just from doing this. So, final shot here. Let's see if we can hit the best one, closest one to the pin for the final shot. Let's see what we can do just with this last movement here. Now that was a real squat into the ground. That definitely felt very powerful. Is it going to be good? What a one to finish on. So make sure you go ahead and give these 3 tips a try and drop a comment down below the tips or drills video topic you'd like me to cover next. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed watching this one, as more content is coming to you every Tuesday and Friday. So be sure to check out this video over here if you're looking for more content on the iron play, and stay tuned because I'm going to be announcing a very exciting course coming out very soon to help you further improve your golf, and it's all to do with the downswing. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the very next video.